The filing cabinet in front of him held the design of the atomic bomb, every plutonium schedule, every neutron calculation, every secret America had. 9 cabinets, all locked. Combination dials rated for 1 million possible codes. Feynman had no tools, no key, no combination. And within minutes, every cabinet in that room would be open. But it started 3 years earlier, with a paperclip. 1943, Los Alamos, New Mexico. The military has gathered the greatest scientific minds in the country to build a weapon that could end the war. The facility is still under construction when the first scientists arrive. Security should be the top priority. It's the most classified project in American history. And yet, as Feynman described in his Los Alamos from Below lecture, they kept the secrets of the atomic bomb in filing cabinets locked with nothing but padlocks. Some cabinets didn't have locks at all. The design of the most destructive weapon ever built, stored behind a lock you could buy at a hardware store for a few cents. Feynman noticed this on his first week. There wasn't much entertainment in the New Mexico desert. The scientists worked brutal hours on the bomb and had almost nothing to do in their downtime. For Feynman, every lock was a claim that something was secure, and claims without proof were the one thing he could never leave alone. So he taught himself to pick padlocks, a small screwdriver, a bent paperclip. That's all it took. He'd walk into a colleague's office, open their filing cabinet, take out a classified report, and hand it back to them later. Thanks for your report. That was it. No alarm, no investigation. Just a physicist proving a point that nobody wanted to hear. He told the security office. They didn't care. He showed them how easy it was. They shrugged. The attitude was, we're in the middle of the desert, behind a fence, guarded by military police. Who's going to break into a filing cabinet? Feynman's answer was simple. He just did. But security eventually caught up. After about 18 months, the military ordered an upgrade. Out went the padlocks. In came Mosler combination filing cabinets. Heavy, steel, with a 3-number dial rated for 1 million possible combinations. Problem solved, right? The officers relaxed. 1 million combinations. Even if someone tried one every 10 seconds, it would take over 3 months of non-stop work to crack a single cabinet. Feynman's little paperclip trick was done. Except Feynman didn't see 1 million combinations. He saw a badly designed puzzle. He sat with his own cabinet one evening, slowly turning the dial, and felt something the engineers at Mosler never intended anyone to notice. A tiny give at positions the dial wasn't supposed to stop at. He tried it again. Same positions. Again. Same. It wasn't random. The mechanism had a flaw built into its own design. You didn't have to hit the exact number for the bolt to clear. There was a margin of error, about 2 numbers on either side. That meant you could treat every 5 numbers as a single group. The dial didn't really have 100 positions, it had 20. Do the math. 3 wheels, 20 effective positions each. 20 times 20 times 20. 8,000 combinations. Not 1 million, 8,000. Feynman could try all 8,000 in about 8 hours if he had to. But he wasn't going to brute force anything. Remember, this was a man who spent his days looking for elegance in quantum mechanics. He wanted something cleaner. He figured out something about open safes. Every working day, people pulled their cabinets open to get documents and left the dials exposed. While a safe was open, that dial still moved freely, and by carefully rotating it, he could feel the mechanism respond at certain positions. A slight resistance, a faint catch that appeared at some numbers and not others. Those positions revealed the last two numbers of the three-number combination. Two numbers out of three, already known. With the last two numbers locked in, only about 20 possible first numbers remained. He could try all 20 in a few minutes, but he didn't need to do that yet. He just needed to collect. So he started a quiet game. He'd visit colleagues in their offices, have a conversation, talk about physics, about work, about anything. And while he talked, he'd lean against their filing cabinet and fiddle with the open dial, casually, like it was just something his hands did while his brain was somewhere else. One afternoon, he sat in a colleague's office for 20 minutes discussing a calculation problem, and walked out with 2/3 of the man's combination stored in his memory. The colleague thanked him for the help. He had no idea what Feynman's hands had been doing the entire time. Another time, someone walked in while Feynman was at their cabinet. He had to stop mid-read and pretend he'd been looking for a pencil on the desk nearby. Close call, but nobody ever caught on. Nobody was watching his hands. Everyone was watching his face, because when Feynman talked physics, people listened. Over months, Feynman built a mental catalog, name after name, number after number. And whenever someone needed a cabinet opened, a colleague out of town, a document needed urgently, Feynman could do it in minutes, sometimes seconds. Scientists started knocking on his door. "Feynman, I've been locked out. Can you help?" He always could. And he fed the reputation. When someone asked him to open a cabinet, he'd close the door and make them wait, even though he could crack it in seconds. The longer they waited, the more impressed they were. If it looks hard, people believe it's hard. But there was one method even simpler than the dial technique, and it exposed something worse than bad locks. Feynman found out what the factory default combination was for. The Mosler cabinets. The number the manufacturer set before shipping. He tried it on every safe he could access. 1 in 5 opened. 1 in 5. These people calculated neutron cross-sections for a living, and they couldn't be bothered to reset a 3-digit code? But there was something else happening in Feynman's life at the time. Something most people leave out of this story. While Feynman was perfecting these methods, fiddling with dials, memorizing numbers, building a reputation as the great safecracker, his wife Arlene was dying. Tuberculosis. She was in a sanatorium in Albuquerque. Every weekend, he made the 200-mile round trip to see her. His salary was $380 a month. She died in June of 1945. Before the bomb was tested. Before anyone celebrated anything. He never wrote much about what that period felt like. Now, back to that office. This is after the war. Feynman returned to Los Alamos to finish some papers. He needed a document from the library, but it was a weekend and the library was closed. He remembered that Frederick de Hoffman, a fellow physicist who kept copies of every document produced by the Manhattan Project, had 9 filing cabinets full of them in his office. Feynman walked in. The lights were on. It looked like someone had just stepped out. He waited. And while he waited, he did what he always did. Started fiddling with the combination dial. He tried some random numbers. Nothing. He tried the factory defaults. Nothing. De Hoffman had changed his. Then Feynman stopped thinking about the lock. He started thinking about the man. The secretary's desk had an ordinary lock, the kind he'd been picking since his first week. He opened the drawer, searched through the papers, and found something scrawled along the top of a sheet. Pi equals 3.14159. Why would a secretary need the value of pi? She didn't. Her boss did. De Hoffman dealt in numbers. Mathematical constants. Feynman tried 31, 41, 59. Pi's first 6 digits split into pairs. Didn't work. He tried other pi-based arrangements. Nothing. Then the thought hit him. De Hoffmann was a physicist. He wouldn't use the obvious constant. Everyone knows pi. He'd use the other one. Not the famous one, the quiet one. Euler's number, E. 2.71828. 27, 18, 28. Click, clock. It opens. Feynman pulled the drawer open, walked to the second cabinet. Same combination. The third? Same. He checked 3 of the 9 and stopped. Every cabinet in de Hoffmann's office, all behind the same 6 digits of a mathematical constant. He didn't pick the lock. He didn't drill it. He didn't use any tools at all. He figured out what kind of person de Hoffmann was and guessed right on his second try. Now, what happened next is one of the best pranks in the history of American science. Feynman grabbed a red grease pencil and a piece of yellow paper. He took the document he needed. Then he wrote a note and left it in one cabinet. When the combinations are all the same, one is no harder to open than another. Same guy. He went to a second cabinet and left another note. This one was no harder to open than the other one. Wise guy. In a third, he left the only one with his name. I borrowed document number LA4312. Feynman, the safecracker. Then he closed every cabinet and walked away. When de Hoffmann came back and opened his first cabinet, he found the note. Same guy. He didn't find it funny. He panicked. His first thought wasn't, Feynman is messing with me. His first thought was, a foreign agent just accessed everything. He found the second note. Wise guy. Fear rising. In his mind, same guy and wise guy didn't mean prankster. It meant the same person who'd been rumored to be trying to break into Building Omega at night. The paranoia of the era was thick enough to breathe. This felt real. And the paranoia wasn't imaginary. The man who actually stole America's nuclear secrets, a theoretical physicist named Klaus Fuchs, had worked in the same building, in the same division. When British intelligence caught Fuchs in 1950, investigators asked him, who at Los Alamos was most likely to have been feeding information to Moscow? He reportedly named Feynman. The actual spy pointed at the man who'd spent 2 years proving the locks meant nothing. Feynman was nearby, watching. He saw de Hoffmann's hand shaking as he searched through the files. He realized, slowly, then all at once, that this wasn't funny anymore. De Hoffmann was genuinely terrified. A man who'd spent the war surrounded by secrets now believed those secrets had been stolen. Feynman quietly directed him toward the last cabinet, the one with the signed note. De Hoffmann opened it, read Feynman's name, and the terror dissolved into relief so intense that he walked over and hugged him. As Feynman later wrote, he'd started walking toward the door, afraid de Hoffmann might kill him. The hug was a better outcome. At some point during his time at Los Alamos, Feynman's reputation attracted a real professional. The military called in a locksmith, an actual safecracker, to open a captain's locked safe. When the locksmith arrived, someone told him Feynman was on site. The locksmith was thrilled. As Feynman recounted in Surely You're Joking, the man said, God, you're Feynman, the great safecracker. I've wanted to meet you for so long. Feynman was confused. Here was a man who did this for a living, a professional. Why would he be impressed by a physicist who fiddled with dials as a hobby? So he asked, teach me how you crack safes cold, without any tricks, without knowing the combination. The locksmith stared at him. He couldn't. He hadn't drilled the captain's safe at all. He'd tried the factory default combination, and the captain had never changed it. That was his entire method. The same method Feynman used. When the locksmith asked Feynman to teach him how to crack a safe cold, Feynman said he couldn't either. Feynman later wrote about what happened when a colleague in the property section told him the locksmith had gone up with his tools to drill the captain's safe. Feynman asked the locksmith, "If someone came to you and asked you to drill a safe, what would you do?" The locksmith said he'd put on a show, gather the tools, walk up to the safe, place the drill against it, and make some noise. Save the job. In other words, fake it. Two men, famous for the same impossible thing. The locksmith's entire method was factory defaults and theater. Feynman's entire method was patience and human psychology. Neither of them could do what everyone believed they could do. They'd both built legends on the same foundation. Not on beating the lock, but on reading the person behind it. The locksmith read the room. Feynman read the combination setter. And the gap between what people assumed and what was actually true, that gap was where both reputations lived. On paper, that Mosler lock had 1,000,000 combinations. In practice, people narrowed it down to a handful. Birthdays, anniversaries, mathematical constants, factory defaults they never changed. Sound familiar? The password policy at your company demands capital letters, numbers, special characters, and everyone capitalizes the first letter, adds a 1 at the end, and sticks an exclamation mark after it. Same pattern, 70 years later. As Feynman put it in Surely You're Joking, he'd opened the safes containing all the secrets to the atomic bomb, the schedules for the production of the plutonium, the purification procedures, how much material is needed, how the bomb works, how the neutrons are generated, what the design is. The whole schmear. Not with a drill, not with a computer, not with force. With one question. Who set this combination? And what kind of number would that person choose? That question didn't retire when Feynman left Los Alamos. He spent his whole life finding the gap between what people assumed was secure and what actually was. And the safes were just the beginning.